Hello and welcome to Newsworthy Stories with Jacqueline Jimenez. You'll often hear me say how vitally important it is for people to show your work on social media. Well, one of my clients asked me to share an example of what it's like to share your work through story. And this is what I shared with him.
What you need to understand is your phones as a business owner and your iPads, you don't need to have a big media marketing department if you know how to use your phones. The reporter's primary job is to tell the story, but a producer's primary job is to sell the story. And while this is important to you because this is what you need to do as well for social media, because social media is your audience.
We want to give you a scholarship to come and be a part of Florida Memorial University.
Hello and welcome to Newsworthy Stories. I am Jacqueline Jimenez and I am live in London, getting ready for the London's New Year's Day Parade, where Marjorie Stoneman Douglas of Parkland, Florida, the Eagle Regiment, was invited to perform here. It has been an extraordinary week, and I'm so looking forward to sharing the stories of what they've been doing the week that they've been here.
Hello, I'm Jacqueline Jimenez with Newsworthy Stories, and what I'm finding is astounding. I've been using my cell phone and an iPad Pro to generate news coverage all over the world, and it's something any business or nonprofit or corporation can do because your cell phone goes with you wherever you go. Your marketing department doesn't. As a news producer for over 30 years and media strategist, I've been able to help Carter Bonus of Spectrum Golf go from securing his first interview live on the Golf Channel. That coverage led to him walking the Chubb Classic with the legendary Ernie Els. Now he's Sports Illustrated Sports Kid of the Year in less than a year. He's also been named a spokesperson for the UPS Be Unstoppable campaign, which included tickets to the Masters. Plus, he was selected for Doug Flutie's Stars of the Spectrum Golf Team, a competitive league for autistic golfers.
You just have to put your mind to it.
On tonight's 7 Spot.
Part of his success is due to teaching his parents how to shoot video in a way the media would use it on air, and in a way I could produce news stories specifically for social media. That way we could own the messaging.
We want to give you a scholarship to come and be a part of Florida Memorial University.
Carter and his line of golf apparel are now known around the world, and he's just scratching the surface. For Janice Giles of Railbrook Elderberry Products, her business was highlighted in her new location on Black Friday twice. All the pictures and videos they use, shot from my iPad. I've even taken my iPad to the U.S. Virgin Islands with James Amps of Amps International LLC to bring to light the greatest threat in the region, food sustainability and conservation. In partnership with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, along with the University of the Virgin Islands School of Agriculture, James held his intensive AMPS Entrepreneurship Leadership Institute retreats to generate interest among the youth in agriculture and conservation, and it's working. This global story gaining the attention of the Virgin Islands Consortium, who shared a 5-minute story on our first retreat in St. Croix, then shared this article on the retreat in St. Thomas. The Caribbean Broadcast Network is also sharing our stories, along with the Westside Gazette in Miami. A medical supply company that opened up in the heart of COVID was one of the first stories I produced during the pandemic. They went from virtually no business at all to nonstop customers.
So we were just opening the store, and obviously, no real budget to do any immediate marketing. We didn't really have our proper signage yet. We didn't have signage outside. So we were new store without any visibility. So in Jacqueline coming in and saying, you need to get visible, you're an essential business, we need to talk about your store, we need to get it out there. What she produced was a news story. Before we had the story, we really just had a couple of people kind of walking by. Then the story broke. Then we had people coming in saying, we saw your story, that was amazing, oh my gosh, you have a crafter, you're working with someone locally. And then people just attach themselves to that. They want to feel a part of community, and local news stories on local, with a local reach is really so impacting. It has just been so important for us to have that. We're so appreciative of that opportunity. We would have never known how to do that. It's really meant a lot of business to get our name out there on social media.
Using video shot mostly on the phones of Pilates instructors all over the world, I was able to produce stories about Pilates Day for the Pilates Method Alliance. I was also able to produce multiple stories for 2 of their conferences, the last one in Las Vegas. I tell people all the time I'm not a videographer, but after working with the pros for decades, I just know what to shoot, and it's really essential for social media, especially when you're trying to create original content on a daily basis. But I don't always shoot video from my iPad. I also have a team of professional camera crews that will shoot intimate settings or corporate events. The ICAPA World Network is a perfect example. It maximizes its signature events through story, generating interest in the organization and providing a tool for every guest to share on their social media sites, highlighting honorees and sponsors.
If you don't network, you might not work.
The cybersecurity experts at Land Infotech using their stories to open doors about how they've been impacting the community throughout COVID. Instead of them talking about how great their efforts have been, they simply shared my story.
Give people an idea of how you've been using this story to your benefit on social media and promos and whatnot.
It's better than having a website or a business card. We use it as intros to all different events. We use it to our vendors because we represent various manufacturers, and now we're showing them what we're doing to the community. And it's not just coming from my mouth; it's coming from the hard work of Jacqueline, of course, and as well as our customers. And in some of the pieces, they're not even customers. They're people that we've just wanted to help, and we don't do this just for clients. We want to help everyone in the community.
The impact of their stories, expanding their reputation as a business leader in their industry to a leader in the community as well.
Eventually, what will happen is he will get paid moving forward because everyone sees the value in what he's brought to the table. We're just very lucky and fortunate to have Land Infotech.
For nonprofits like the Healing Arts Institute of South Florida, Media Strategies and Stories helped secure grants worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to offer no-cost mental health services primarily across the state of Florida. It also helped generate grants because funders could see their work.
What would you like to tell the kids who maybe have a diagnosis like you have, maybe autism or ADHD or something? What do you want to tell them?
That it's okay to feel different, and when you're upset, really upset, just talk to someone you trust.
Healing Arts continues to impact the community, not only with therapy, but by sponsoring family fun events, helping children and families heal from the trauma of the pandemic and more. Franchisors and business executives who offer services in multiple states are finding they can take the same story idea and get coverage in 2 places at once.
First, I have to say that Jacqueline did a fabulous job of writing up a press release, not just for us, but also for our franchisee, Tammy Krakalici, who is in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And as a matter of fact, you were 2 for 2, Jacqueline, because not only did we get covered yesterday by the NBC affiliate WPTV, Channel 5 in West Palm Beach, Tammy this afternoon was covered for 2 hours by her local TV stations up in Massachusetts.
Hello and welcome to Newsworthy Stories. I am Jacqueline Jimenez and I am live in London.
While in London supporting the Eagle Regiment Marching Band from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, I was able to generate news coverage from Channel 10 News in Miami before they played in London's New Year's Day parade. When the band returned back to South Florida, Channel 10 met them at the airport for an exclusive story. The Eagle Regiment is heading to the Macy's Day Parade next. Guess who I'm going to call first? While I enjoy covering and producing stories, the most important aspect of Newsworthy Stories are the workshops and masterclasses that are based on my handbook, How to Get Television News Coverage. It's easier than you might think. I can train your entire business or organization how to generate news stories so you'll have original content and you won't have to rely on stock photos to tell your story. The reason why Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are so popular is because people are genuinely curious. They want to learn more about you, and when they do, it creates customer loyalty and it puts fuel on personal branding. It just out the window.
I'm a profound believer in exposure, profound believer in vision, because even the Bible says, without vision, the people will perish.
Make no mistake about it, I want every client's story to go beyond my abilities, so I go to the master. I pray over every project and the purpose behind it, and I believe that's the success behind Newsworthy Stories. Our stories are raising awareness, changing lives, and building businesses, and the driving force behind what we do is the impact it has on the community.
Relationship, relationship, relationship.
From personal profiles of success stories to cyclists joining in solidarity, there are news stories all around you. I am on a journey, and the media is a mission field. There's a story in your service. Let me help you share it. Well, after watching that video, I hope you learned something new about Newsworthy Stories, because even when I share a story, I'm not just sharing the story about a person or an event or an activity. I'm sharing my work. I'm sharing how I shot the video or used video other people shot and produced a story. I'm sharing how I was able to put a story together, a story idea, and come up with it and decide, what do people really want to hear about this event? What's most important to them? And I'm using the techniques that the newsrooms use all the time. And that's what makes everything that you do for television The same for social media. And when I'm sharing that story, that's what I'm thinking about. How do I get this message across to the people who are going to see it? I tell you, it is exciting that when you are putting together a story and you're starting to visualize and you see the how to use the nat sound, from a story. That's like nat sound is like, birds chirping or cars, splashing through a puddle. All those things are important in telling your story, but you really want to be intentional if you're shooting the video yourself. And one of the things that I teach people in my workshops is how to shoot the video yourself so you can put those stories together. And I even tell you how to edit it yourself. There's so many things that you can do. Um, Even in this video that I shared today, it's only a snapshot, like, of what I do at Newsworthy Stories, because even the media strategy sessions that I do with executives who don't have their own businesses, that wasn't necessarily shared in that video, but it's one of the vital things that I do. I help executives um, how to answer questions when the media comes and, they're an expert in a news story, things like that. Also, how to identify themselves. There are many executives who are very successful, but when you look at their LinkedIn profile or things like that, there's no excitement, you know, and it doesn't really tell the story, but certain colorful words could do that. And so I help through story. I talk to them, I interview them. I find out about who they are, not just about what they do, not just about their skill level. And when I'm trying to help them identify themselves on social media and come up with a brand for themselves, you have to interview them. You have to get to know them. And you do that through media strategies that will connect you with the people who are going to be watching you. That is really a big, put a pin in that. you know, how do I connect with the people on the other side of the screen? Because that's what newsrooms have been doing for decades. We're not just sharing a story, we are trying to connect with you, how to make it intimate where you are a part of the story or you're becoming aware of the story or the urgency behind the story. I tell people all the time, what is the urgency behind your business? Because that's the tactic that news uses every night. They start off with breaking news, or this just in, or this is developing, because they want you to understand there's an urgency behind why they chose that story. There are so many news stories that they could choose, but they have a handful that they can actually tell. And one of the workshops that I do in particular, it's the intro, and definitely the most economical one um, that you can choose. But it really breaks down why news needs your stories, wants your stories, why you shooting the video really helps them get that story on the air. Um, there's so many different aspects of what is actually happening in a newsroom as to why they can or can't cover a story. And when you get that bigger view of why it is that you see the same types of stories covered on a regular basis, and yes, there's some other stories in there that you don't normally see, but my goal is to get more stories like yours, like the ones I've been covering, because those stories are hard to come by. Those stories, they come from you. News isn't going to find those stories. You actually have to tell the newsroom that your story is happening. Otherwise, they're not going to know about it. And the same thing for social media. People are like, I don't really like to tell people about, myself or show my face or talk on air or any of that. and I understand because I spent most of my career behind the camera. But when I wrote my handbook over there, I always get confused. How to get television news coverage, it's easier than you might think. I knew that I was going to have to come from behind the camera for people to understand the importance. That handbook is 100% examples of how to take what the newsroom does and apply it to social media, or how to get news coverage in general. It even has, it's just 100% examples. It's no reference, come take a workshop. No, it really isn't. It was actually intended to be given to the people I was consulting, who were coming for media consulting. But when COVID happened, the news stories kind of took off, and I've gone from story to story to story, and it was really great. I was actually challenged, like I said, to create this video, and it was good. It was a good lesson for me because I had to go back and look at what I've done, and then create a pathway to actually show his members, because he has a networking group, and to show them how to create a video that is engaging and tells the story of what they do, but it's still in a story format. It's so important for you to take the time to be intentional about getting testimonials, about having a coworker shoot video of you in action, because those stories are what people are more likely to remember than if it's in a commercial format. And so I encourage people to tell or show your work in a story format simply because it's easier to remember. I mean, if you look at the commercials today, they're all in a story format, just about. They're not just saying, oh, hey, here's my product. This is what I do. Come see me. No, there's a story all around, Jake with State Farm and all kinds, there's just tons of stories out there. And we're identifying with those characters. And then help us to remember the product. And that's just something that you have to remember in showing your work. How are people going to remember what you're doing? The other thing I didn't get to share in that video are one of the workshops that I do is called Coverage Possibilities. And when you're especially trying to get news coverage, you want to give them multiple coverage possibilities. Sometimes when we're creating an event, and what you do is you're so focused on, okay, let's get a press release to talk to the media about the event. But the event necessarily is not a story, but certain things leading up to the event might be. And so most of the time, you just have to turn that story idea around a little bit to make it more impactful. One example was at the Palm Beach International Boat Show. And I was there and I was talking to the man from the editor in chief from Yachting Magazine. And he was telling me that this yacht behind me that we were looking at, he was like, oh, this yacht was actually assembled, was in pieces like 3 days ago. And I was like, what? And I was like, that's a story. Can you imagine if the news had shown up and we watched, them assemble this yacht, and then to show up on it, and it was gorgeous. That's the story. When you go to the Palm Beach Boat Show, there's so many yachts out there, it's hard to differentiate them. But when you come up and you have shown me how you put a yacht together, that's a story. Even in this particular video that I really wanted to bring home was the speaking opportunities and the workshops and master classes, because yes, I go from story to story to story often, but there is definitely a time period of teaching that if you understand what to shoot or shoot it on a regular basis, you will have fresh video on a regular basis, and your marketing department won't have to go to stock photos. I cannot possibly share with you how vitally important that is to your business or your organization. And with the phones that we have today, it's easy. You could be generating news coverage from your local news. Some of our news has gone nationally, internationally. Using our phones and iPads, it's vitally important, especially if you're a small to mid-sized business. 100%, all I can tell you is what we're doing, as I always say, this is simply working. It works so much better even than I thought it would work. But every day we are generating awareness, attention. We are impacting the community in some way. And that's what Newsworthy Stories is about. I am looking for stories that not just tell a story, but are sincerely changing the world. And like I mentioned in the video, I'm on a mission. This is a mission field, and it's just ripe for the harvest. And they need your stories. People want to hear your stories, and the easiest way to get it out there is on social media. You don't have to have a huge marketing team or a huge production crew. Although I've seen I've seen a lot lately where I was just amazed at some of the production teams that companies and corporations are hiring, and the work was definitely beautiful, no doubt. If you can pay for that, get it. I say yes. I say yes and yes and yes. Yes to the smaller stories, yes to the bigger stories, and yes to the like movie style stories. Get it all because all of it will benefit you not only financially, from a personal branding, your message will go out because you'll be able to own that message because it will have come from you. And people will understand not only what you sell, but who you are and what you stand for. And for 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 people today, that's what they want the most. They want to feel like their purchase is making a difference. And one of the easiest way to do that is to connect it to the community. So come and join me at one of my workshops. If go to Newsworthy Story, STORY, .com and connect with me. If you don't see a workshop that fits in your time, then send me a message and I will create a workshop in a time that fits you. I look forward to working with you soon and telling your story. Thanks for joining me on Newsworthy Stories with Jacqueline Jimenez.